Ask your questions at any time during our show tonight. This should be about an hour, but I'll stay here as long as anyone has questions. So tonight is how to teach writing, and you can get a hold of me at my website, teaching-reading.com, and I have YouTube's, LinkedIn, podcasts, everything there is public, meant to be shared with anybody and everybody. So let's get to the heart of it. Tonight, I want you to take a few ideas with you. As teachers, if we can bring 2 or 3 new ideas into our repertoire every year, that's a good thing. Everything I present, adopt and adapt. There is no standardized process that must be. You should adopt and adapt everything. And I'm not going to give you any answers tonight, just some ideas. And again, take the ones that will work for you. But first, to start out, and hello, Cynthia from Detroit and the Cayman Islands. Your school must make a very important decision. Do you want to teach writing? Do you want your students to be and become good writers? And sometimes I question this because it seems as if the answer is no. Or do you want to meet the standards? Too many schools want to meet the standards and they don't want to teach writing. Does education exist for people to make money? That's a common gripe, that too many programs and curriculum are designed to make people money. I'm not making any money here tonight. The Common Core state standards, those are one set of academic standards. And one of my things with the Common Core state standards, they recommend 3 types of writing: informational, narrative, and persuasive. There are 3 short. There should be 6 types of writing in a comprehensive writing curriculum: scientific writing, the arts, and communication. In my book, I show you how to teach all of these. But this is one of the limitations of using the standards to define our writing curriculum. Focus on the writing first and address the standards later. Academic standards should never, ever become the curriculum. Actually, standards can impede students' ability to learn to write. Here are some of the standards. They really have nothing to do with learning how to write, learning the process of writing. These standards can provide interesting ideas for things to do, but they're a means to an end. They should not be an end in and of itself. Thinking that addressing all the standards is going to get you to a finished writing product is baloney. It just won't happen. And again, academic standards should never become a writing curriculum. For example, some of these have very little to do with writing. Use concrete words and phrases and sensory details to convey experiences and events precisely. When in your adult life have you had to do that? Doesn't mean these aren't interesting things to be in a program, interesting things to use, but make no mistake, doing these things is not going to help your students be and become better writers. Standards might be an end, should be a means to an end, but not the desired end. And again, here are common standards. Orient the reader by establishing a situation and introducing it. This is a very abstract thing. It's outside the individual. And who wants to do that? How would you do that if someone told you, hey, Mary, hey, Janice, I want you to orient the reader by establishing a situation and introduce. No. Why? Why? The desired end, big picture, is to use print to create meaning. Use print to effectively communicate and transmit students ideas, not to provide a conclusion that follows from a narrated experience. That is not the purpose. Standards may inform the curriculum. They should never become the curriculum. A curriculum is a systematic plan for instruction designed by the teachers within a school district or at various grade levels. You know your students, you know where you want them to be. You know what they should learn, the specific concepts and skills, and what order they should be taught in. So teachers, we need to take back our curriculum. That was just an overview on standards. This is the order of things we're going to look at tonight. And really, we're going to focus on the process. But first, how to not teach writing. And it often seems like schools are intent on not teaching writing. If you want to not teach writing, assign all writing topics. Could you imagine if someone told me what I had to write about? I would have no motivation to write. If you want to not teach writing, make sure you assign all writing topics. Boys and girls, I want you to teach about. Just assign more writing. In college, we have these things called writing intensive courses, and they do absolutely nothing to teach the process of writing. And to learn how to write, you have to learn the process, how you go about writing. Just assigning more writing does nothing. Teaching grammar and writing mechanics apart from writing. I teach grammar over here, I teach punctuation over here, but I write over there. Teaching writing skills is much different from teaching writing. Sometimes when I do this presentation, people ask, well, Dr. Johnson, how should I teach grammar? How should I teach this? Teaching subskills is different. I'm not saying it's not important. It's an incredibly important part of teaching writing. But you always teach these skills in the context of real, authentic writing. This often happens. See this a lot in high school and college. You describe what the finished product should look like. It should have an introductory paragraph. It should be this. It should be that. You don't teach the process, how to get there. It's like trying to teach someone to make raspberry jelly by describing the final jelly product. No, you have to teach them how to put the ingredients together. So it is with writing. Have students write for a single audience if you want to not teach writing, just the teacher. What's the best way to develop a sense of audience? Give students an audience. Correct and edit versus respond. Students need responses. They need to know how the writing is playing inside the head of the readers. So, and by the way, as I was writing this book, Being and Becoming Teachers of Writing, it really is designed for students K through 8, but I was at the same time teaching a graduate writing course, scholarly writing, and I discovered that the same sorts of advice I was giving to kindergarten teachers, to kindergarten students, I was giving to my students as well. The process is the same, whether you're in kindergarten or graduate school. The process is the same. And that is the key to teaching writing, is to teach the process. But here's what a body of research says we must do. Research-based strategies. Daily writing practice? Yep. A variety of types of writing? Yep. Routines, so students know what to expect during writing class? Yes. Writing every day, a routine. I believe in writing workshop or some structure like that. Maximize talk and social interaction. Absolutely. Literacy is a social process. Students should be able to choose their writing topic, express their thoughts, and share with real people, get responses from peers. Thoughtful composing activities instead of worksheets. Worksheets do absolutely nothing. Allow students to take ownership of their writing, yes, and celebrate ideas. And I'm going to show you some ideas for self-evaluation tonight as well. A supportive writing environment. Yes. Students working together as they compose. Yes. Adapt writing assignments to the needs and interests of their students. Yes. Provide scaffolds. Yes. Checklists for peer editing and teach skills specifically, but as students are ready for and as they need them. Teach writing skills and strategies, elements of effective instruction. I'm the holiest of whole language teachers, but I believe in very direct and very explicit instruction of skills, targeted mini lessons within the context of authentic writing. And you must teach the process and the 5 steps, and we're going to focus on that tonight. And that's nothing new. Donald Graves introduced this in 1983. I think we've forgotten that a little bit. We're going to focus on that tonight. Connect writing to learning and reading. Yes, use writing for pre- and post-reading activity, culturally sustaining pedagogy. You allow students to bring in their culture, their background, their experiences, and use the tools that we have. Spell check, grammar check, synonyms, speech to text, text to speech, all forms of social media. We use this. We align our writing instruction with students' natural inclination to write. So, and lost my train of thought because I was looking at your questions here. Assigning writing topics. Yes, if we want students not to write, assign them the topics that they have to write about. These are from my book, and you see I cite my sources there. I tend not to cite my sources in my webinars tonight. So teach the process, the writing process, to develop the skill. This is nothing new here, but I'm going to give you some strategies for doing each one of these 5 steps. And again, take the ideas that will work for you. Being and becoming teachers of writing. How did I come to that topic, by the way? It's a nod to being and becoming, Abraham Maslow, being and becoming, because teachers are in a state of being. They're fine just the way they are, but a good teacher is always becoming, always evolving to a higher state. All children are being writers. All children can write from the very first day of kindergarten. We have to make them better writers, so they're becoming writers at the same time, being and becoming, or being and becoming better humans, being and becoming better teachers, being and becoming teachers of writing and writers. That's where I got that title from. Step 1, pre-writing. What you do before you write is just as important as what happens during writing. Some simple strategies. And generally, these involve generating ideas, and we'll look at those, organizing ideas, and graphic organizers are great. And if you're doing expository writing, information writing, it involves collecting data of some sort. So let's look at some ideas that you must teach your students and you can use. This is a simple idea. The best ones are the simplest ideas. List 3. Boys and girls, what do you want to write about? Once you have your topic, list 3 things you want to say about it and start writing. Real simple. They know what they're going to write about, list 3 ideas, and they begin writing about it. Gets the flow of ideas going. That's a simple pre-writing activity today. Brainstorming. We can't assume students know how to brainstorm. Look at their writing idea and generate as many ideas as quickly as they can. And you must demonstrate how to do this in large group, cognitive modeling. And 2 things, all ideas must be accepted. No criticizing, no evaluation. Oh, that's a stupid idea. That won't work. Nope, this is brainstorming, no evaluation. Silly ideas are celebrated. It's called freewheeling. Because even if someone wants to be silly or kooky, it helps you associate or connect with other things. So we celebrate creative, bizarre, unusual ideas. Get them up there on the board because it always connects with other ideas. Ideas always beget other ideas. Get as many as you can. So teach your students how to brainstorm. Brainstorming group. This is a form of inductive analysis. This can work for expository writing, but can also work for narrative writing. Generate a bunch of ideas. Then you look for groups and put things into groups. This is how paragraphs and sections are formed. But you generate a whole bunch of ideas. You look for groups or patterns. You organize things into patterns, and then you can begin writing. You have a structure. That's called inductive analysis. I'm inducing order on the field. Brainstorming group, pre-writing activity. Power write. This is different than a free write. A power write, you tell students you've got 1 to 3 minutes. Boys and girls, you have 3 minutes to write about your topic. So get your topic in mind. Keep your pencil moving. I'm going to time you. And if you don't know what to say pencil, 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 keep writing until the next idea comes. And you need to model the power write. Free write is usually 5 to 10 minutes. Power write is for a very short duration. And the goal is to get behind the conscious mind, because sometimes thinking too much gets in the way of writing, just to get those ideas on the paper. That is a power write. And here I demonstrate my own power write. Find an idea, attach words and pictures, write quickly, keep the pencil moving. If you don't know what to say, just say pencil, pencil, pencil. And I'm modeling this on the board. I bring in and this is why I'll say tonight, it's important that teachers of writing write as well. Doesn't have to be big or complimenting things, but you understand the process and you can say, boys and girls, when I was writing, this is what I did to get my ideas on the page. The power write. The brain walk. This is great for getting writing ideas, and you model this. This is where you take your brain out for a walk. You start with a word, and then the first thing you associate, you write down. I did this, did the polar plunge, and I immediately thought of cold water. Then I thought of lifeguard training. It was at a camp and I got hypothermia and had blue lips. And that reminded me of Eddie in the pool. He was drowning and I saved him and I pulled him up. And I remember he came to restroom room, and you see how one idea links to the next, taking your brain for a walk. And in this pile of garbage, I found I had 3 or 4 great writing ideas, things to write about. And I would record these in the cover of my portfolio, and I would write about them another day. Mr. J, I don't know what to write about. Well, look in your writing list. You've got some ideas there. Brainwalk, pre-writing idea. Web and brainstorm. Some people like the visual layout of this. This is nothing new, by the way, but if you have a topic, related ideas, generate, these become paragraphs or sections. With a story, same thing, except you have the events and generate. This provides a scaffold. Take the ideas that work for you, adopt and adapt. Web and brainstorm. Again, nothing new there. It's just a little bit more of a graphic. Some people like that, the graphic form. And outlining or listing. You don't have to use official outline form. Just start listing the things you want to say, especially for expository writing, outline. Very simple, very simple. And turn to a neighbor. Boys and girls, before you start writing today, turn to your neighbor. Describe, what do you think you want to write about today? And I always teach children how to respond to each other. And I'll show you this a little bit more. What did you want to know more about? What seemed interesting? Describe a similar experience. So I have these in poster form up on the board so students know how to respond when someone is sharing their writing ideas. This should take 3 to no more than 5 minutes before they write. All right, boys and girls, you got some good ideas. Get those on paper now. Get them on paper. And I usually have a list of pre-writing ideas, pre-writing activities. These are just some. You can use your own. These are just some of the ideas. All right. Step 2 is drafting. And you must teach your students. This is like a potter throwing the glob of clay on the wheel. You have to write poorly. You get all the ideas on there so you can start shaping. You cannot write well if you're not first willing to write poorly. Get those ideas. And I'm a real writer. I write things, and I often have to remind myself, and I've been doing this for 30 some years, I get so caught up in getting it just right, I get stuck. And I have to allow myself to get garbage on the page. And getting that garbage on the page, you begin to see the structure. This is why it's important to be writing stuff as teachers of writing. So you can say, boys and girls, I didn't know where I was going with this, but I just decided I need to stop and just get the ideas on the page. Step 2 is drafting. Don't think, get it out. Don't think some more, get it out some more. Repeat as necessary. And I show them examples of my draft with scratches and marks and arrows all over it. That's what a good draft. A good draft, if you're writing well, that's not a good draft. A good draft should be garbage. It should look horrible. Now, most writing activities you will do in your classroom are pre-write, draft, and share. Pre-write, draft, and share. That gets you a lot of good drafts. That's most of them. These take anywhere from 3 to 10 minutes. Most of the writing activities. Responses is what makes writing come alive. Hearing other students respond, reading, and it provides you ideas for revision. Getting that response from peers is powerful. And the best way to develop a sense of audience is to give them an audience. And again, you're teaching your students how to respond to each other's writing. These are some ideas for response guidelines. And you can find these in my book. You can Google it online. Lots of ideas. These aren't mine. These are things I found online. Simple steps from kindergarten up to graduate school. Nothing new here. A lot of good ideas. We don't have to reinvent wheels. Good teachers doing good stuff. Let's share their ideas. Listen, look closely. Be the teacher. Adopt and adapt. You don't have to do it my way. You don't have to do it this way. Do it the way that works best for you and for your students. All right, most of the, as I said, are pre-write, draft, and share. And then students should put their drafts in a file folder or a milk carton or a notebook on the shelf, someplace but not in their desk. So that when it comes time for writing, you can say, boys and girls, you can work on a draft that you want today. Go grab a draft and we'll be working on that today. So in a writing workshop, and I'm not going too in-depth for this, you don't have a specific beginning and end where students are beginning a piece at the same time. There's pieces going on at all different stages. So students are able to pre-write, draft, edit, revise, whatever, wherever they are at. Step 3 is revising. And this is the heart of the writing process. Revise is to review or see again. This is where you're shaping the clay. You've put the glob of clay on the wheel, you're spinning it around and you're shaping it. And when potters make a pot, they don't do one spin, they do many spins, and they begin to shape and see the pot within the ball of clay. That's what revising is. It is not an editing session. It is not an editing session. Here you're moving ideas around. You're saying things differently. You're reshaping it. You're going to address grammar and punctuation in step 4, not in step 3. This is where you go over and over again until it sounds just right. revising. A simple revising strategy. And this is something you review. You teach them. You use cognitive modeling. You're thinking out loud. And a reread is just going sentence by sentence. Once I've got the whole draft, I move to the part. Does this sentence make sense? Is it just the way I want it? Is there anything that does not need to belong there? Then go to the next sentence. And once I've done the whole paragraph, I read the paragraph. Is there anything that does not need to be there? So I'm teaching students this strategy to read it out loud. We can't assume they know how to do that. And by the way, reading your work aloud is a way to develop what's called a writer's ear. You get a sense for what sounds right. And another simple strategy, and I use this a lot, is having the computer read the paragraph aloud to me. You get a much better sense of how it sounds. You develop that writer's ear. Yes, that is text-to-speech software. It's in all our programs. You can teach students how to use this. You could have someone else read their work aloud as well, but reading it out loud. Text-to-speech software. It's incredible. I use it a lot. I go paragraph by paragraph. Use the technology that we have. Providing an audience, again, what did you like? You could read it aloud, or you could have students read their work during this revising process. What did it remind you of? What did you want to know more about? This is Magic Circle, and I've used this in second grade through graduate school. It's a responding session, not an editing session. And I'm going to go through this. It is so cool. Students identify a piece of writing that they want a response, and no names on it. They make sure there's no identifying marks. You collect all the students' writing. And again, I've done this from second grade through graduate school. With younger students, I actually had them move their circles in a desk. That's why I call it writing circle. I shuffle all the papers and I give one to each student. Students read and respond to that paper. I tell them to think all over it. Let the writer know what was going through your mind. And I have those response guidelines on the board. When they finish, they can put it on a desk in the center and wait for another paper to come up. Or with older students, I simply have them raise their paper and trade with another. With younger students, I like them getting up and moving because it gets them moving and going back to their desk. And the goal is to get through 3 or 4 papers. And you can see when the energy starts to leave, but at every level, I found usually 3 or 4 papers and they start to go. When you're done, you say, bring your papers, put it in the middle, and then you can find your own. And when they get their paper back, they got this thinking all over it. It's alive. It's incredible. They see what parts people like. An incredible revising strategy. Magic Circle. Second grade through graduate school. Writing conferences. This is not an editing session. This is where a student signs up to talk with you, the teacher. And you're asking questions. Tell me about your paper. What do you think you want to tell me about your paper? What are you working on? You're asking questions to get a sense of them as a writer. What do you think you might work on next? Why don't you read part of your paper for me? What are you having trouble with? And this good teacher is taking notes as the student is reading and talking about his or her paper. Tell me more about that. What would you like to add to this? Step 4 is editing. This is where you look for grammar, spelling, and punctuation errors. Doing step 4 during steps 1 through 3 is going to ruin any writing. Because if you're trying to get it just right, That limits the space in short-term memory to be thinking about ideas and connections. If you're so concerned about grammar and spelling and punctuation, you don't have enough space to think about ideas. So it's okay to have spelling errors. That's what spell check and grammar check are for. With young students, I like to use editing checklists. It's a simple checklist with 3 to no more than 6 things to look for. Don't have too many of them. And these are all things that I've had simple mini lessons on. Mini lesson is mini, 5 to 8 minutes at most. And they simply write yes or no, happy face, sad face. This helps them, this gives them ownership and helps them see, begin to evaluate and look at their own writing. And of course, if I'm looking at students' writing and I'm seeing students are having trouble with something, that becomes the basis of a mini lesson. That's very direct instruction because it is directly related to what students need at that moment. That's the joy of the mini lesson. So I make that put that on the editing checklist. And you can use these, you can find these online, a whole bunch of different ones. This is a checklist I use for a graduate class. So it doesn't have to be that complicated. Keep it simple, keep it simple. Keep it simple, keep it simple. Adopt and adapt. What are you looking for your students? Rubrics. I hate stinking rubrics because you spend so much time that they become too cumbersome to be of any use. And people think they're great because you can put numbers, but you get all these different qualities, and sometimes students have 2 of this and 2 of here and maybe 1 here. A rating checklist is a lot easier. This is a rating checklist. You simply rate it or check it 1, 2, or 3. Much more pragmatic, much more useful than a rubric. You can't assume that students know how to use a spell check and a grammar check. Even at the undergraduate level, I have to teach my students, the Fab 5 checklist. Again, okay, there you go. And you can find these online. This isn't Andy thinking. There's so many good ideas online. You don't need to reinvent wheels. Thank you for asking these questions. We can't assume that students know how to use a spell check or grammar check. Even my undergraduate students, I have to tell them those red lines under the words mean something. That grammar check means something. So don't assume students know how to use that. Keep it simple, keep it simple. Peer editing. Here's 2 great peer editing ideas. The first one is a station idea. This is where you have a designated day and you focus on 4 to 6 skills. And each group is assigned 1 skill to look at. And students are told, make sure you have a piece ready to be edited on such and such a date. And then the papers they have papers at different stations, and students rotate to different stations. So if you are the sentence group, you look just for complete sentences on all the papers. Then you go to the next and look for the complete sentences there, and to the next, so that they get through all. What step of checking coherence comes? When is the step of checking coherence comes? That is the revising. Does it make sense? Is it the way I want to? So that would be step 3, revising, to see if it makes sense. Yep. So peer editing, 1 group has 1 skill to look at. So you have maybe 4 to 6, and that's all they do is look at that skill. You can rotate students through all the stations, or you can rotate papers through each of the stations. The second editing, peer editing, is called an editing table. Students who have completed their own edits bring their work to the editing table. And you have 2 to 4 student editors working with a para, parent, or older student. Every student should have a chance to become an editor. They use a checklist, and they go through and they edit the paper or help to edit the paper. Again, I like having older students, para, or parent. It is the thinking moves from outside to in. This is how you learn. It's that social learning as you talk about papers, as you learn to edit papers. And everyone needs an editor. Everyone needs an editor, myself included. Everyone needs an editor. All right, step 5, sharing and publishing. And this is the magic step. To develop a sense of audience, this is what makes writing come alive. This is what makes it real. This is what makes it exciting to see how it plays in the heads of your audience. Now, I'm going to differentiate 2 ways. Sharing is a single event or one-time interaction with the text, in-person listening or reading of someone's written product. And publishing is a product that people can listen or read many times over, like a recording of something. This will become more clear in just a minute. Different ways to share. This is nothing new. An author's chair. Sign up when you're ready to share your piece. Usually 2, no more than 3 author's chairs in a day. It's kind of hard for students to listen to more than that. And if students are ready, they can sign up. You can have a sign-up list. You can set goals. I'm going to do 1 author's chair this quarter. Small group sharing. This is the simple. Or reading to your group. In your group, you can read your work out loud. You can read and pass activities, read and exchange. And I use these in my college courses as well as with young students. To read and share. This is when I'm doing the basic pre-write drafted share. I do a lot of this. But there's no way this must be done. Adopt and adapt in ways that work best for you. If you're seeing these ideas and saying, boy, how should I do this? There's no way that it must be done. You need to find the way that works best for you and your students. Things that work good for younger students often don't work the same way with older students. Open mic day. It's like open mic night. Set aside a day for students to read short works. And this could be in the classroom, the grade level, or school. Set aside like 2 minutes, and you'll find that students will be writing for open mic. Boys and girls, we're going to have open mic day on next Friday. So if you have something you want to share, this is your time to do it. You could have poetry day, comedy day, social issues day, monsters day, whatever. But I put a time limit on 2 minutes usually. And it's often good to preview what students are going to write and say about. But doing this, students will begin to write specifically for open mic day. And I'll show you why this is important in just a minute. You may be thinking, oh, this is just silly writing. This is not how writing works in the real life. Here's the thing about these creative, silly ideas. The same process used for writing comedy and silly stuff, that same process is used for academic and professional writing. It's the process we're concerned about. Students get to see the power of process and the power of their words. You could do things like dramatic readings of narrative texts, kind of like author's chair. You could have them actually perform dramas where they write for a drama and they perform. They have their script. It gets them writing. It gets them writing. That's the important thing, writing and sharing. And silly writing is good. It's the process that they're taking with them. And this is the type of thing students are motivated to write. They naturally have this inclination to write, to share, to perform, to be silly. So let's tap into this natural inclination. Instead of writing reports on grain exports from Bolivia, find things that students want to write about. Podcasting and audio recordings, absolutely. We've got the technology. It's very simple. You can record these and post them on a trusted website. These are publishing things that students can access over time. Video recordings, absolutely. Again, they'll be writing specifically for this, or they could take a piece of work and they could turn it into a video recording. Class books are always a hit. You could have groups of students to write on an anthology or a theme. These become part of the classroom library, and then students the next year can see what older students wrote. Students love reading what older students have written when they were in the same grade. So class books, anthologies, there's a lot of different binding sorts of things that you can use. I'm not seeing it on the site yet. Oh yes, my new book just came out like last week. So this book, Being and Becoming Teachers of Writing, it's not on that website yet. Thank you. It just came out last week, literally. Here's a student sharing. Publishing parties, yes. Celebrating, yes. Have fun. Fun is fun. Arts magazines, yes. Poetry, graphic art, writing, yes. In my book, I do talk about bringing the art back into language arts. And I call it language art, using language to create art. That's what language art is. Not language arts, but language art. And I talk about poetry as well. Writing contests are fun. This could be grade level. You could have a school-wide, multi-school event, kind of like speech contests, but you have writing contests where you give first, second, or third level, blue, red, and third place, not place, but like blue ribbons at the county fair. I used to do this with creative dramatics. I had a first level, second level, blue ribbon, red ribbon, and a yellow ribbon, except I never gave any yellow ribbons, only blue and red. And I had best of show and best in different categories. I did this with creative dramatics when I was in gifted and talented coordinator, and I did this with writing as well. Gifted and talented, providing these open-ended activities where students can get in and take them as far as they want. Every student has a chance. And here's what I love about these sorts of teaching writing through animation. Yes, here's what I love about these open-ended activities. You see talents that you wouldn't see simply by assigning topics and worksheets. You see things in students that you don't see with this one-size-fits-all curriculum. This is the joy of writing. This is the joy of art. Absolutely. You could have a writing contest live where you read it live right there. This one, students submit their work. This one is like a speech contest where you come and you read your work aloud. And again, adopt and adapt. Have fun. Fun is fun. All right, couple of things. Impact of in-class sharing. When I'm doing in-class sharing, again, from kindergarten through graduate school. Boys and girls, what do you want to write about it? Turn to your neighbor. All right, get those good ideas on paper. And there's always this buzz of talking. And then I say, okay, great, get those. I tell them to get their ideas on paper. And then it's quiet for a while. And I'm watching their pencils. And when I see the pencils begin to kind of slow down, I see the energy leaving the pencils. That's when I give a verbal mile marker. All right, boys and girls, finish the idea and we'll share in about 2 minutes. Finish the idea you're working on. And The whole experience maybe takes anywhere from 5 to 8 minutes or so at most. Simple impact. When you share, you develop this community, this understanding. It's not going to happen the first day or the first week, but sharing real thoughts with other human beings, you begin to understand, sharing these real ideas and experiences. It is a powerful thing, whether in second grade or undergraduate students in my college courses. It's an important part of my college courses. Silly personal writing. And again, does this get in the way of the writing students will need in their real world? And I've answered this, no. Silly personal writing is all good because they're learning how to convey thoughts and ideas effectively. And it's the process that transfers. The skills and processes learning in creative personal writing transfer to more formal writing. It's the process, and we're teaching the process. So yes, silly creative writing should be encouraged. It enhances motivation, but you learn the process. So don't be afraid of being silly. Silly is good. Put the art back in language arts, poetry, drama, song lyrics, comedy monologues. Yes, YouTube videos, interviews, whatever you think your students might enjoy. If it involves putting ideas on the paper, that is good. Put the art back in language art. You see the different sorts of things. All right, we've got about 12 more minutes, and then I'll take any questions. Once students know they're going to write every day, they start thinking about writing even when they're not writing. Now, if students aren't used to writing, it may take time. They may have trouble. I don't know what to write about, Mr. J. Once they know they're going to write every day, they're thinking about writing topics even when they're outside of class. But I say, what do you want to write about today? What's going on in your life? What are you thinking about? What do you want to tell someone? What's something you've noticed? What did you do yesterday? These are all from students' lives and students' experience. To be a human being is to have ideas. Every human being has things that they can write about. Lists of things. Sometimes I have them keep a list of things in a journal. Things you notice, interested in important events. Write some of these down. Then when it comes time to writing, they can look in their list. Interesting or important people to write about. Things that you wonder about. Prime the pump. This is where in the old days, to get the pump to pump, you have to pour water in to prime it. This is where the teacher shares a short writing excerpt, something ideally that they have written. And then you say, what are you thinking about right now? What do you want to say about this? What do you want to write about? Have you had a similar experience? Priming the writing pump. We've talked about brain walks, and I've given you that example. Teacher writing prompts. Yes, you can use a teacher writing prompt. The goal is to be prompt free. These are like those skinny tires you put on a car to get you to the gas station. If you're going to use them, know that they're temporary devices. And there's nothing wrong with a writing prompt, but try to keep them specific, universal, and open-ended. For example, this is a bad one. Describe a favorite family vacation. All right, you can't assume every student has a family, feels comfortable with his family, had a vacation. All right, you have to be universal and open-ended. Something like, describe something you enjoy doing. And here's a trick with teacher prompts. Always test them out on yourself. How would I respond to that? That prevents you from having the lame prompt. I like to call these internal writing prompts. What do you think about? Describe, tell me about. What do you think is interesting? What do you want to tell me about? What did you see? What did you? Everyone can respond to these kinds of prompts if you're going to use them. And it's okay, you may have to use them more at the beginning of the year, but eventually you want students to be able to write from their own topics. Unfinished sentences, yes, provide just enough to get students writing. Here's some examples. I really like to. Blank is something I do when I'm bored. I had really fun when. It was scary when. All different ideas. Sometimes you can put a list up and say, choose one. Inauthentic, bad, expressing other people's ideas, writing what they don't want to say, organizing or explain someone else's thoughts. When students are asked to write a report or prove they've read a book, these are bad writing prompts. Write a story about. That's probably one of the worst ones because it's so abstract. What is the author's point of view? I don't care. You read a book and you're asked to describe the author's point of view. No, I don't want to write about that. That wasn't my reaction. Keep it limited. It makes it harder for students to write or to learn to write if they're writing about something they don't want to write from someone else's point of view. It makes it easier if they're writing what they want to say, what they want to express. And that's our goal, for students to learn how to write, how to express their ideas. Writing is easy if you teach the process, and if students are allowed to say what they want to say, and if students get to choose their writing topics. Writing is easy. Look at this young man here. You can see he's excited to get his ideas out. Get them to write from their experiences, their expectations. And more is not better. This is sometimes a student will come up to you and they'll have just a little, and you'll say, oh, go back and add a little more detail. But more words does not make something better. In our adult world, we have to write concisely. If a student has said everything they've had to say, then find something else for them to write about. And I'm very hesitant to give minimums. Write 3 to 8 sentences, write 2 paragraphs about. Shorter writing is just fine. If they've said everything they've had to say about something, find something else for them to say or write about. Rigor is not the same as complexity. All right, I'm going to end it here and see if we have any questions or things to add here. Who can teach writing? Okay, I'm going to write my email here. And if you wish to get a CEU certificate from MSU Mankato, send me that email, just requesting that. Someone has a question here. Will there be an email sent out with additional information or a summary of this PD? What additional information would you like? This was typed in the question. This is an excerpt from my book. I'm not here to sell my book, but I've got a lot of good ideas in my book, Being and Becoming Teachers of Writers. And this is published by Routledge. Being and Becoming Teachers of Writing, Andrew P. Johnson. If you go to Amazon, you'll find it. A recording of this will be sent to all who have registered. Absolutely. Email address is, I'll put it again, andrew.johnson@mnsu.edu. PowerPoint. I will send you a recording of this. I'll send this out to everyone who has registered. I did not see the email you were speaking of, Laurel. It should be in the chat. Oops. Let me try that again. Okay, try it again. andrew.johnson@mnsu.edu. There you go. Now you should see it. Yep. Being and becoming teachers of writing. Andrew P. Johnson. Got lots of ideas there. This was just an overview. There's nothing new about the 5-step writing process. We seem to have just forgotten about it. Other ideas or things to share? Got one more from the question. Email sent out with it. Yep. How do we teach genre? In my book, I hate saying in my book, but there are the 6 different genre: persuasive writing, expository writing, someone added a question. I lost my train of thought. But I teach how to teach the different genre there. At a point, it's really different to learn from a native expert than to learn from ordinary educators. Okay, I don't quite understand that question. Specific writing tools you recommend? Yes. Paper and a pencil are probably the best writing tools that you have or that you need. That's really all that you need. And then use the technology that you have around you. You have a word processor. Use email. Teach students to write using email. Usually starting in 3rd or 4th grade, students are given their own school emails. Use that. Have them write emails. This is described in my book, Communication. That's one genre of writing, personal communication. Other questions? Okay. Mention about having older students as editors. How can this be made possible among different age groups? Ideally, if you have a single age group, you can invite 1 or 2 students in. You don't need a whole lot of them. If you're in a multi-age classroom, which are kind of great, you can have the older students become editors. When I'm using editing tables, I usually only have 2 editors at the same time. And you can have pairs, you can have parents come in, or you can have older students. Yes. Doc cameras, excellent tool for modeling. Yes, document cameras, posters, old-fashioned whiteboards, typing on a screen in front of your students, all ways to model and to think out loud. Boys and girls, when I was writing, I got stuck here. I didn't know what to do. I decided to play it back on my computer to see what didn't sound right. Other good ideas that you might have to share? You've got good ideas, by the way. Don't think you have to. I wrote this book because I couldn't find a good book on how to teach writing. I was developing a writing methods course, and there simply was not one. Don't think you can read this book and you have to follow it exactly, because you can get overwhelmed. When people think they have to start doing writing workshop, it can be overwhelming. Take a little piece and start small, but think big. Think big. Okay, thank you. I'm glad that you got benefits. A great session. Okay, concrete ideas. Yes, a lot of good ideas. Again, take the ideas that work. Don't get overwhelmed thinking, oh, I have to do this whole new thing. Take the ideas that work for what you're using right now. Think big, but start small. It's real easy to get overwhelmed when you first start thinking, I have to teach this process thing. I also ask the students as I am writing, yes, to share their thoughts. Yes, it's called shared writing. When you're writing along with your students, how should I say this? And you get their ideas. Shared writing, excellent idea. Other good ideas that you wish to share? I'm going to put adopt and adapt. Yep. I'm gonna, very good. It's good to see you as always. I'm gonna put my email address again. If you want a CEU certificate, we're certainly welcome to give you that. And I know you're kind of finishing up your school year, but take these ideas, tuck them away with you. Always a joy to have you, Jim and people. Always a joy. Except it's kind of a one-way conversation. Yes, writing your own drafts and having grammar errors in there. Absolutely. That's called daily oral writing. If I want to focus on, you have like 3 sentences on the board. You have students come up one error at a time, or one thing to correct at a time. Very good, Janet. Good to see you. Trudy, good to have you with us. Other ideas or questions? Okay. I'm glad you found it of worth. Take 1 or 2 ideas with you. 1 or 2 ideas. Boys and girls. Yep. I'm old fashioned. Boys and girls. The binary. Students is probably a better one. I'm an old dog. I like calling them, yeah, I could call them children. I started using boys and girls in 5th grade and 4th grade because they were so quick to grow up. I wanted them to be boys and girls for just another year or 2, but using children would probably be better. What is the name of the certificate we request? Just say you want the CEU certificate. And it's a document. If you need CEU units for professional development, just a document that says that you attended and participated in this 1 clock hour. Just say, I want the CEU certificate. Good ideas, good insight. Yep, got to stop the binary, boys and girls. So yeah, that's a good point. I've got ideas, but no answers. I've got ideas, but no answers. Okay, get in your last questions, because I'm going to go start sending out certificates.